false accusations, wrongful arrests, and abuse of power.
No alcohol, nor drugs.
When cops pull over someone for suspicions of DUI, they become a lot more aggressive.
Are you needing immediate medical attention to where we need to go to the hospital now?
The officers often take advantage of drunk individual situations
Green paper tells you have 30 days to replenish.
and sometimes even use false allegations to arrest them. In today's video, we're going to be looking at times when cops abuse DUI arrests. Number 1, Mariah Valenzuela. We've seen that cops sometimes take things too far. Instead of trying to de-escalate a situation, police officers typically are the main aggressors in a lot of cases. That is exactly what this woman from Phoenix, Arizona faced when she was arrested for a false DUI charge. On January 16, 2020, 23-year-old Mariah Valenzuela was stopped by Officer Michael McGillis right before midnight. The body camera footage from the incident shows that Valenzuela parked her car in a parking lot and got out as the officer approached her. Things became tense when the officer asked for Valenzuela's ID, which she did not provide.
Do you have any ID on you?
Why am I getting pulled over?
The 23-year-old wanted to know why she was being pulled over. Valenzuela kept on asking why she was being pulled over, but the officer refused to respond to her. He asked her about her ID again, and just seconds later, things turned violent. McGillis grabs Valenzuela and tells her to put her hands behind her back. Seeing the cops' aggressive behavior, Valenzuela resists the arrest. However, McGillis tackles her and her face hits the pavement. He puts his weight on a woman much smaller than him and puts her in handcuffs. Valenzuela continues to scream for help. She was breaking down in tears and wanted to know why she was being arrested, to which the officer said that she didn't give him any ID and that she was driving in the wrong lane, claims which Valenzuela later refuted. McGillis then picks her up and shoves her against his car, saying, "Why don't you act like a young lady?"
Stop! Why don't you act like a young lady?
Soon after, another officer arrives and Valenzuela is led to the back of a police car. The 23-year-old suffered multiple bruises, injuries to her hand and her face, and a bleeding cut on the top of her head. The officers wrote in the police report that Valenzuela smelled of alcohol and marijuana. According to the reports, she admitted to drinking and smoking marijuana and also possessed a medical marijuana card. She was arrested for multiple charges and misdemeanors, including a DUI charge and a felony resisting arrest. Valenzuela's attorney, James Palestini, reported that his client's blood alcohol test came back as .043, well below the legal limit of the state, which is .08. All the charges against Mariah were later dropped, including the resisting arrest charge. In a police statement obtained by NBC, it was said that the Phoenix Police Department takes allegations of misconduct seriously and the complaints are investigated thoroughly. In these investigations, body-worn camera footage is reviewed and documented. The incident was reviewed by the Professional Standards Bureau and no police violations were found. A spokesperson for the department, Sergeant Ann Justice, said, "Traffic stops are all unique, and the officers use their training, experience, and judgment to determine the appropriate course of action when a person refuses to give the officer the information they are required to provide." But investigators from ABC 15 delved into some public records and discovered that McGillis, the most senior DUI officer in the department, has been internally investigated 12 times since 2014. Drivers' complaints make up about 8 of these investigations. Complaints against the officer range from missing court dates, using foul language, racial profiling, and use of excessive force. Since then, Valenzuela has filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Phoenix and Officer McGillis. Her lawyer claims in the lawsuit that the officer violated Valenzuela's civil rights and used excessive force in her arrest. The lawsuit also calls out the Phoenix Police Department and blames it for creating a culture of impunity that encourages officers to use excessive force. Neither party has come to a settlement as of yet, and the case is still ongoing. Number 2, Christina West. Another instance of police officers resorting to violence and taking things too far was in the case of Christina West's brutal arrest in Tallahassee, Florida. On the day of the incident, West and 3 foreign exchange students were returning from a day trip to Panama City when the 44-year-old crashed her SUV into an unoccupied home in Kilburn Estates. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured during the incident. Things, however, quickly turned violent when Tallahassee police officers arrived at the location. In the footage obtained from the scene, West is being asked to take a sobriety test by the officers. She complies and takes the test, soon after which she's put in handcuffs. West is then walked to and put in the back of a squad car. Her handcuffs slipped off, prompting the officers to order West to come out of the car to readjust them. West, however, was concerned about her husband and kids and asked the officers to contact them as she exited the vehicle. One of the officers' tone started to shift. When West finally came out of the vehicle, the officer slammed her head into the rear windshield of the car. Then, in an attempt to restrain her, the officer slammed her face on the asphalt as she screamed out in pain. As she's crying out, she tells the officers, "I think you broke my right cheek."
I think you broke my right cheek.
An officer responds, "You're fine."
You're fine.
The officers then got her up, put her in the back of the vehicle again, and drove off as she continued wailing. West ended up being charged with DUI and several counts of battery on a police officer. Her gruesome mugshot showed her right eye purple and swollen shut. Her nose was bloody. According to reports, she had bruises and cuts on her arms and legs. She was immediately taken to the hospital after arriving at the jail. Footage of the incident soon hit the news and everyone was in shock. The Tallahassee Police Chief, Dennis Jones, said in a statement, "We understand that the video is disturbing to watch, and it is for us too. We use cameras to help capture events such as this and are making the entire video available as we continue our internal investigation." The chief retired early in his career, several days after the story broke. The Florida state attorney also appalled after seeing the footage of the vicious incident, saying it was very disturbing. "I am extremely upset," Meggs told the Democrat. "This is a very disturbing situation to me, and I'm dealing with it." West, together with her lawyer, Fred Conrad, proceeded to file a lawsuit against the city and the police department. They claimed that the officers used excessive force and aggressively seized her. The lawsuit also stated that West suffered fractures, nerve damage to her face, vision impairment, and other painful conditions. A Leon County grand jury found that the officers were in fact responsible for West's injuries, but the jury did not call for any charges or their termination from the force. An internal investigation by the department cleared the officers of allegations of excessive force. The city of Tallahassee finally reached a settlement with Christina West and agreed to pay her $450,000 thanks to a unanimous vote on the matter. The two officers present at the scene, Chris Ormerod and Matthew Schmidt, were later disciplined by the department. Schmidt was suspended for 40 hours without pay, while Ormerod received a suspension for 2 weeks without pay. Number 3. Tavon Galanakis. In August 2022, the false accusation and wrongful arrest of college student Tavon Galanakis caused a stir in the Newton community and sparked heated online discussions. Officer Nathan Winters pulled over the 19-year-old for using high beams while driving.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
And you're not supposed to have your brights on.
Galanakis told the officer that one of his headlights was broken, but the officer didn't really bother to listen to him. The officer started asking Galanakis questions about where he'd been all night and if he was drunk. Despite Galanakis continually telling the officers that he had not had any alcohol and would take a breathalyzer to prove it,
How much have you had to drink tonight?
None.
What do you mean none?
Officer Winters didn't seem convinced. He made the teenager take mandatory field sobriety tests and kept delaying the use of the breathalyzer. The cops claimed he smelled like alcohol. But when they finally gave him a breathalyzer test later on, he blew a 0.0. Despite that, they still asked him if he'd smoked weed that night.
When's the last time you smoked weed?
I do not remember that.
Tonight?
Who?
The officer later told him that his slow response, inability to find his registration,
That's what's going on. You can't do that, man. You really can't do that.
Absolutely I can.
slurred speech, bloodshot, watery eyes, and infractions in his field test gave police probable cause to place him under arrest. Galanakis denied the allegations, but they took him to the station anyway for drug tests. Eventually, he was cleared and sent home. Now, 6 months later, the police department is facing a lawsuit for false arrest and civil rights violations, among other allegations. According to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Iowa, Central Division, Galanakis and his attorneys, Matthew Bowles and Adam Witowski, are suing the city of Newton, Police Chief Robert Burtis, Officer Nathan Winters, and Lieutenant Christopher Wing. Galanakis claims that the officers had no reasonable suspicion to administer field sobriety tests when they pulled him over for using his high beams in town shortly after midnight. In the suit, he claims that the police did not have probable cause to place him under arrest or believe a criminal offense had been committed. In response to the lawsuit, the city filed counterclaims alleging that Gallinakis made defamatory statements, intentionally inflicted emotional distress, invaded privacy, and filed false complaints against Winters and Wing. The city maintains that both officers did not violate any standard operating procedures during the traffic stop and subsequent arrest. The city also alleges that Gallinakis took advantage of the publicity generated from false and defamatory statements by using them to earn income. The case is still ongoing, and we have yet to see which party comes out on top. These were some of the cases where the police abused DUI arrests. If you want to watch more such videos, subscribe to the channel. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time.